From Guanacaste, Costa Rica, and welcome to our Friday live chat here. My name is Matt Rosensteel, and today I'm deviating a bit off of my typical real estate chats to talk about a very pressing issue for a lot of foreigners coming and going from Guanacaste, Costa Rica right now, and that is the massive airport traffic jam that you're seeing outside of the Liberia or Guanacaste International Airport. The infrastructure work that the Costa Rica government has decided to undertake on a particular bridge has created traffic jams that put people back up to 3 hours. We've had people sitting, waiting to be let over this bridge for multiple hours. Some it's just 1 hour. Other people get through just fine. But it is a huge traffic jam that is affecting people immediately coming in and out of Liberia. And today I wanted to talk not only about how you can avoid that airport traffic jam, I also want to give some more general information about Costa Rica infrastructure. I want to try and help people see the good side in everything that happens here. And I really just want to give helpful tips so that you can plan effectively if you are coming to or from Guanacaste here in the near future. It is May 23rd, 2025. I would say that this episode is very time sensitive and that you're not necessarily going to be needing this information for long. But judging by how quickly bridge projects can happen in Costa Rica, I would bet that people out there are going to need this advice for many months, if not multiple years into the future, because we may be dealing with this bridge being out for Lord knows how long. Very glad that Tyson is signing in. Erica, appreciate your comment as well. We'll be talking about that. Very glad to have you all joining me today. Let's first and foremost remind you that if you'd like to get in touch with me directly, if it's time to start thinking about real estate in Guanacaste, you can email me at matt@costaricamatt.com. It's a very easy address. You can also go to costaricamatt.com and request my V-book, which is the basic real estate information in 20 video chapters, everything from closing costs, the buying process, more and more. You can log on to costaricamatt.com and smash the big V-book button, fill out the form, and send me a request for one of the millions of copies that people have been requesting of my international best V-book seller. Again, with basic information about real estate in Guanacaste. So first and foremost, I need to remember to turn off that background music before I get too further along, and we'll dive right into our topic. I'd like to show you, first of all, the bridge in question here. And we'd like to spend a special thanks to 506 drone pilot out there for allowing us to use these photos. Here is the bridge that we're talking about. It is incredibly critical for reasons that I will tell you about in just a minute. It is in the area called Comunidad or Guardia. It is really close to the Liberia International Airport, or rather the Guanacaste International Airport. Importantly, this bridge is the only way across the Tempisque River for many miles in either direction. The Tempisque, as you can see, is a very massive river. And so now that this bridge is damaged, as you can see here, and now that they've decided to make repairs on that bridge, essentially what they've done is shut down one lane of traffic while they're executing those repairs. Now, interestingly, and this is something you probably wouldn't see elsewhere in the world, look at these tents here on either side of the bridge. Maybe they have good pictures of that as well. Essentially what they've been doing to avoid buses having to wait in the traffic jam that this creates, they're stopping buses on one side of the bridge people get out and walk using the old bridge here. And here you can see the two tents. And essentially they'll unload from their bus on one end and pick up a similar bus from that company on the other end, so that buses aren't waiting in the massive traffic jams that can pile up. Let's talk specifically about this location and where we are in the Nicoya Peninsula, and or rather where we are over by Liberia. And just a second, let me bring that up on a stage once again. That's not the one that and I always, well, let's just bring up the full map so that you can see this easily. And then hopefully I'll bring myself back in here in just a little bit. This bridge is located just outside of the Liberia International Airport. And I'm sorry, I keep calling it Liberia. It is the Guanacaste International Airport. This route, number 21, is absolutely critical. It connects everything to the airport here. It's really the only way to get to the airport. And this bridge is located right here. So you can see just how critical this is for people coming and going to the airport itself. And essentially when you get the one lane being shut down, they're waving through big chunks of traffic, either this way and then this way. And in either direction, you can sit in traffic waiting to be waved across, like I said, for 1 or up to 3 hours. So first and foremost, if you are going to cross this point, if you have to go to the airport and you can't follow the tips that I'm about to give you, I would highly suggest absolutely planning your trip well in advance so that you've got extra time to get out to the Guanacaste airport. That traffic is going to be there and cause some issues no matter what. I wanted to mention, so essentially every time these problems come up, you will immediately hear, especially foreigners and, plenty of Ticos as well, just immediately start complaining, oh, Costa Rica's infrastructure is just so terrible. And you'll see foreigners sort of raging on social media, oh, why can't they do this, that, the other, and this bridge, blah, 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 blah. It always causes this super negative backlash, which first of all is an entire waste of time, just because the Costa Rica bureaucracy is not about to change because people are complaining about it on Facebook. And second of all, really, it's not also seeing the bright side of this infrastructure, or the bright side of what Costa Rica really is. One has to acknowledge that this problem does stem from a huge increase in the number of vehicles in Costa Rica. In 25 years, we've gone from 600,000 registered vehicles in the country up to over 1.8 million. So you've seen a tripling of the total number of registered vehicles in Costa Rica. And so these types of problems, the infrastructure that existed, has been absolutely taxed by that explosion in the number of cars on the road. A lot of that isn't solely due to foreigners coming to Costa Rica, and it's not just an international influence, and that's what's changing things. It's also that a heck of a lot of people in those 25 years have moved on the socioeconomic ladder up to a point where they can afford a motorcycle or car. It also has a lot to do with Costa Rica being a victim of its own economic success. There's a heck of a lot more activity happening nationally here, and consumption. There's just plenty more going on in 2025 than there was in 2000. And as a result, yeah, they haven't been able to build bridges, highways, everything needed to support that explosion in vehicle growth, or that explosion in the number of vehicles. But you have to remember that these traffic jams, the growing pains, this is all part of what Costa Rica is, which first and foremost is a country in Central America, where your GDP isn't so enormous that you can just build new bridges at the drop of a hat. Part of what everybody loves about visiting Costa Rica is that there aren't towering skyscrapers, massive factories, all of the typical global industrial infrastructure that go into countries with bigger infrastructure, etc. So these bridges, these little issues that we face, yes, they are part of Costa Rica. And when you're sitting on that jungle-lined beach, thankful that there are only palm trees in your view, you have to remember that, yes, bridge problems, traffic, etc., some of those come along with being in a Central American country that isn't just filled with the kind of infrastructure that you're accustomed to in the US or Canada. Good news is this is a very easy traffic problem to avoid and ignore. And if you're able to, the simplest way for you to deal with this problem will be to avoid coming through that intersection anytime between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Construction crews here get started right around that time, 7 a.m. And really, you're also going to see traffic here in Costa Rica until about 7, especially at places like this Route 21 outside of Liberia. The other night I was out there, and even just after, we were headed towards 6 p.m., there was still a huge amount of traffic because of the route's importance to everybody in the country, rather to this entire corridor. Traveling along here, you just have massive evening rush hour traffic. Whatever you can do to come there either early in the morning before 7 a.m. and really well before 7 a.m. or after 7 p.m. is going to be the easiest way for you to miss out on this issue. And as Erica mentioned at the beginning of the broadcast, you can sail through this point without any problem if you can avoid it during those work hours. Now, I really think that whether your itinerary permits it, no matter what you should consider doing is changing your plans first and foremost so that you don't have to drive through that area from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And possibly you should even change your plans to take an alternative route and see an absolutely gorgeous part of Costa Rica that perhaps if you were headed to Guanacaste, a lot of people might have not been thinking of visiting these amazing areas out east. And I'm going to put some clips here from my road trip just the other day. Why not head up to Arenal or another incredibly beautiful mountain area for one day of your trip so that you can avoid this traffic? And trust me, not sitting in 3 hours of traffic would absolutely make it worth heading up to these mountain areas that I'm showing you now in order to make your trip a lot smoother and not have to be sitting there for 3 hours. To bring up the map again, there are a couple alternatives. So essentially to alter your trip, obviously, the clear choice, rather than coming down here on Route 21 and passing through the bridge, if you leave the airport and instead first drive to Liberia, you have options now to visit different areas of Costa Rica that may not have been on your itinerary. One possible thing, so for example, if you were planning on spending the majority of your time at the beach, what I might suggest you do is take that first night of your trip, instead of driving down here through Guardia and Comunidad, and hopefully you can see my cursor there on on Google Maps as it's coming up in the window, come through Liberia, and you could spend a night in absolutely gorgeous La Fortuna over here as sort of a jaunt over to the eastern side of the country. It would be something completely different from what you're going to see out in Guanacaste. The volcano is absolutely gorgeous, and you'd really get to see a distinct part of Costa Rica. You could even just hop over here to Tilarán. That's a much more sort of, it's not incredibly touristy, but much more authentic sort of community. The whole area around the lake here has beautiful Airbnbs where you could spend a night on Lake Arenal in one of these communities before the next day heading south and driving out to Guanacaste over this bridge, the other method to get across the Rio Tempisque all the way down here, which is the Puente de la Amistad connecting the Nicoya Peninsula to the rest of Costa Rica. So now we have a little bit clearer view. My suggestion is, rather than trying to drive through this traffic jam, you can go through Liberia, spend one night anywhere over here, or a night, really these areas down closer to Jaco would be beautiful. Find yourselves a different location and crash there one night and come out to Guanacaste the next day, so that you've got really an easy itinerary. You never have to sit through that traffic. And then really you'll also get to see a bit more of Costa Rica than you're planning on. Plausibly, you could also, if you're checking social media and, for example, you've seen that the traffic is just horrible and really backed up that day, this route down through Nicoya would make a much longer, both physically and time-wise, a drive in one chunk. However, it would be a really gorgeous road trip if you just wanted to avoid the traffic here in Guardia, come down and in a single long drive, come out here. That's absolutely a possibility as well. And that way you're not sort of risking how much time you're going to be sitting there at the bridge. You could also completely change the plans of which community you want to visit, so that you visit these south areas of Guanacaste this trip, rather than forcing yourself to head out to Playas del Coco this trip. And as always, when you're headed back to the airport, a lot of people, what they decide to do is stay at the Hilton Garden Inn, or one of the hotels that is directly across from the airport, that last night they're in Costa Rica. And you know, those airports out here, there's a few and a growing number, really just literally right across from the airport. You could drive out there late one evening, the last evening that you're in Costa Rica, crash there overnight, and then when things open up in the morning, you're already on the other side of the bridge, and you don't have to deal with that huge traffic jam, and you can happily leave Costa Rica without having dealt with it. Next week, we'll be back with some more real estate. Just wanted to address that traffic jam because I know a lot of people out there are coming in and out of the country. Hope you all have a great weekend. Thanks so much for watching. Pura vida, and do be sure to let me know how I can be of service. Send me an email and I'll be more than happy to get in touch.